call this? Okay, great. So today, right, we are going to do a little bit a special landscape, right? This one you might see in Zhang Daqian's painting, right? So let me show you. So I will show directly on the phone. I'm not sharing. My my projector not working. Let me sorry, just give me 1 minute. Let me restart the projector.
Steven，
Lina
对不起啊，我有点迟到。
没事没事，可以的，好，我们刚才也是刚刚开始而已。OK， yeah, okay, sorry, this time working. Right, we have been learning Zhang Daqian's painting before, and we know this is we call Qing Lu, right, means green and blue color scheme, you know, for the landscape, right? But I think most of us, I guess, we didn't look at the original of his painting, right? Because chances are his painting right now, most of his painting is in Taiwan, right? In China also have some pieces, and some others are in the US. And on top of this green and the blue color scheme for the landscape, if you look at this painting, right, you might notice he's using something very special inside the painting. If you see here, right, all this orange color, yellow color, right? These are, if you look at the real one, these are gold paints, the gold color. Yes, they are gold color. Come back. So Zhang Daqian has been using, right? So some of these on top, he also used the gold paints to paint the top of the mountains. Even these mountains behind, he's using some of the gold colors in that. And you might see some other Chinese painting that within the mountain itself, right? They have a lot of outlines using the landscape. So I will search one. Then
Steven, you can send please this photo on WhatsApp. What you just show us this painting.
Sure. Let me just send into the WhatsApp. Okay, how did it say? So, very strange. My phone is not. Let's see. Share. Tab.
Thank you, Steven.
Okay, well, yes. So I also sent to Lin. So you can see in this painting, right? All these far away, right? All these colors is actually using gold paint. So gold paints, right? Normally, you can buy this type of gold paint in the art supply store. This gold paint is actually like open look. It's like gold color. So most of the gold paints was used for calligraphy, right? If you see Chinese New Year, some people they are writing the on the red paper, right? Sometimes they will use gold paints to write on top, right? What are these gold paints, right?
Steven,
Yes,
sorry,
Melanie?
is it gold paint or it's gold ink?
Gold ink. Sorry, not gold ink.
Gold ink.
Gold ink. Yes, we call it gold ink.
Okay. Thank you.
This gold ink, right, is actually how to say the thing for the gold ink is very different from the normal color. For normal color we can do transition, the very watery base. For gold paints, you are not able to do that. So basically, the gold paints is more like acrylic paints, right? Use oil paints used before. It's quite thick and sometimes a bit watery, but then when you put on the paper, it doesn't smudge or it doesn't spread. So you can't use the gold paint for transition. Then in Zhang Daqian's painting, right, he's actually having a lot of these things, but not in all his Qing Yu. Only in some of his Qing Yu, he's actually doing all these gold paints. So what these gold paints will do in the actual painting, right, is it will, when you put your paintings on the wall, under the lighting, some part of going to be shiny. So it's more used as decorations to the painting. And this gold paints for landscape only works in this color scheme because the green, blue, and brown, right, we use is actually the gold is very close to the brown, so it's matching. For other landscape, usually we are not able to use this gold color because the gold color works better with this color scheme. You use for other type of painting, you see all those like black ink landscape, right? You never see people go the gold paint. So gold paints in the painting can be used as a decoration of the mountains. They can also use to do the outline here. You see all the outline and the structures between the mountains. They can also be used as part of the, the lines on the mountains. So let me just get you another painting in Zhang Daqian, also very famous one. I think you might see before. Is using the lines as the structure of the mountain. So let me send you the other one. Okay, let me send you. So, this one is also one of his most famous landscape for Zhang Daqian. If we look in the detail, you can see you see along the mountains, there are very light colors. These are the gold paints. So the gold paints was done on top of the original ink. That means you use ink to draw the mountains, the structure, right? Then on top you apply all these. So you can see inside this painting, right, he actually has a lot of gold paints. So this the shiny one on top of the mountains also. This structure here, you see very close, you will see all this light. So, from computer image, right, we might see this as maybe there's a yellow color, something like that. But in the actual painting, these are the gold color. So today we're gonna try this, yeah. But I know, maybe you don't have the gold ink at home, right? but I will demo to you how does it look like, right, under the during the class. And if you like it, right, then offline you can buy it. I think good ink, as long as the Chinese art supply store, they should have this type of ink there, right? Okay. Now, so first, right, let's come back with the color scheme. How do we do the landscape using the particular gray and the blue color scheme? So we will always start with the line brush. This one for the landscape color, we have to start with the line brush because this style of the painting, right, started in Song Dynasty. In Song Dynasty, as we know, the most popular Chinese painting is Gongbi landscape. Like I think in the earlier class, I mentioned one painting that Qian Jiangshan, which is very long row, the blue and gray, and was done by a very young person who actually passed away after he finished the painting. So that one is also a very good painting. Now, let me tissue paper. Yeah. So we are going to start with the structure of the mountain first. Then we will also complete one complete painting with the gold paints. So first, let's just put in the ink. For the blue and the green color scheme for landscape, we will always need to start with the structure of the mountain. So this one, we will not use a lot of shadings, the Qing style we learned before, but it will be purely based on the lines. So I'm going to use dark ink directly. I'm not going to do the lighter one, so I think dark ink will be more clear for you to see the structure, how to paint the structure of the mountains, right? So always, right, for the mountains, we will be starting on the top of the mountain, then slowly go down to the side. Right. So yes, Nelly.
Sorry, just maybe you can tell us a few questions about the composition of this painting.
Composition of this painting, yeah.
Yes,
so,
just explain a little, please.
Yeah, sure. So for Zhang Daqian, right, his landscape painting, right, most of his landscape painting also very classic composition because he learned from tradition, right? So inside this painting, right, basically is an S shape, right? But the S shape, right, was cut off or was actually by this cloud. So the whole thing, right, you can see is actually the whole thing, the mountain goes down this direction, right? It's actually connecting back to the foregrounds and then coming back again. So the whole cloud here, right, inside is actually cutting the whole S shape from here. But if from the far view, right, you can still see it's actually what we should call the S shape here. Inside is it here, down, go this way, coming down. Now behind, in his this painting, right, behind you see the far away, the brown color mountain or the gold color mountain behind. Is using another triangle shape. So the triangle is this shape, going up, down, horizontal. This is a triangle. So in a lot of composition lines, I see landscape we mentioned before, right? We can actually do combinations. So this painting is also a very classical for the advanced composition. Let's say the paper will go this way. So what he do, right? In the foreground, the middle ground, middle layer, right, is using the S shape here, right? Or in Chinese we call it 枝 shape, right? And behind he's using another triangle composition, something like that. This type of composition, right, is how do we use this type of composition? You need to first to separate the painting into layers. What do I mean by layers? Meaning that, for the scenery, right, you're gonna have some mountains very close to us, which is in the front, and some mountains in the middle section, right? Is here. right? And here, right? So basically, the structure of the mountains, right, is this one is the nearest, and then goes to this one, and then go to the water, right? And then after the water, you come to this mountain, and this mountain. So all these, if we look at the Z or the S shape in the painting, right, is actually the relationship from near to far, from near to far. So that's why they put in this way. It's put in this way. Now the background of the triangle is used as a just background to match the whole S shape. Because if you see, right, this triangle, right, you cannot do this way. So if I go this way. So if I go this way, right, you see, it's actually creating a parallel thing. So that means instead of going up this way, right, and go mountain up this way, it won't be a good painting, right? So the thing for this one, right, is actually still preserve. You see in this painting, if you go across like this part, as we said, the white in Chinese painting is very important. The empty space, here, and the empty space here. You see in his painting, he preserved the white area here, although he colored, but this white area here and here are very important. You see, later he's gonna write on top with taking up this very important space, right? Then this part, you see, just imagine if you have some mountains here, right? This painting will look very squarish, right? So if we have some mountains here, then become very square. Then that's not a good composition. So you can do this way, right? See this way. So he's combining the triangle, right? If you look at the whole thing, this triangle here, right? How do we form this triangle? It's actually from the mountain behind to the cloud to the front. You see, from behind coming down to the mountains, to the cloud, to the river, in the front. So it's basically a S shape surrounded by the triangle shape. Actually, for this part, just for you to know, right, the S shape is created on top of the triangle. Now, you see, if we have a triangle composition, a triangle, if you just add one more thing here, it becomes an S shape, right? So that's actually how it came from, right? So if you look at this composition, it can be a double S shape, right? This way, right? I think this during the class in the studio, you all learned that, right? The advanced composition, we have the double S shape. So if you look at the whole writing here as part of the components, right? The writing, mountain, down, cloud. This is S shape. Then the green mountain here coming down to the blue mountain. Here is another, right? So they are is more considered as a double S crossing. So the double S more inside this painting more like this way. Sorry, no, wrong one. This way. This way. This way. This type of composition. So in traditional paintings, right? If you look at all those famous paintings, it can always come back to the classic composition. Yeah. Any question? Okay.
Stephen?
Yeah. Yes. Hello.
It froze.
Froze.
Steven is lost.
Oh, it stopped. Sorry. Just let me switch network.
Now you back, Steven.
Yes, let me switch a network. I think that network is also telling me not stable. Let me just do one quick. Okay, I'm back. Okay, this time okay. Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, great. I think my it's connected. I should be connected. Okay, good. Okay, all right. So let's go through this is the composition parts. On the technique parts, right? We will just do a very simple mountains here for the steps, and then we go through a final painting together, right? With the gold color, with the gold color, right? So for this type of style painting, right? When painting the mountain, very important, right? Is do not use we call the normal shading, but instead you're gonna have more line styles, and you start from the top of the mountain, and then all the structures of the mountains, right, is actually built by lines and also the shadings. So let's say we do a very simple mountain this way, and then because the mountain, you see, when we see the mountains, right, coming to us, right, if you don't do anything here, the mountains look very flat, like two-dimensional. So you need to actually add some structure. So let's say I'm adding one more layer, right? So now the mountains move one step further to front, right? And then let's say I go for one more here, right? Now it moved one more to the front, right? So you see between all these layers of the mountains, how do we add the shading? In the Gongbi style, right? The lines are added, right? Let's say for this one, right? We will need to add the lines this way. So you see, I'm slowly adding the lines, right? It don't have to start all from the top. You can start a little from the side. This way. On this side also, see, it's coming down to the corner at the bottom, right? So coming down this way. Now for this one also, the lines going up. Then behind for this mountain and this mountain, right? You can also do the lines from here. And while you're doing the lines, now let's say for this one, we also need a little shading. You can actually have more lines there. You see, all these lines are actually giving the mountains a more three-dimensional look. And right, see this one, we give some more half, right, and give a little more shadow on the left-hand side. Right now, it's look like on this side, right, it's slanting, like slope on the left-hand side, right. Then this one down also, as you can add a little more. So in the Qing style, right, all the baseline, the structure of the mountains is done in this way. So we are not doing any what is so called the twin style, like using the side of brush to get the whole thing there. You can still use that, but we are not suggesting you to do that, right? Because that's no longer going to be style. Very fine details for this. But I think it just read also like the week before is in China right now, this color scheme is regain the popularity again. So many people start to do this again, right? So once we have done, all the structures, all these lines, basically these are drawings. And I think some of you might have the book, right? Last time I showed you in the studio, some classmates, I think, also bought it, right? This is 芥子园, right? The master, the garden book, the traditional Qing style. Inside, you're gonna have a lot of mountains in this style. So you can take reference from that also on how to paint. All right. So once we get the lines done, right, now it's about the coloring. How do we color? The most simple one, we need to understand what are these things representing in the Qing style. In the Qing, we say translate into English is blue, green, and brown. Okay, so it basically contains these three colors, right? If you look at this painting, right? This whole mountain, the color is green. We say green, right? Then behind you have the brown color. And this mountain here, right, on top is blue. In the middle section is green again, right? So what are these color representing? Okay, so basically the green is very straightforward, right? The green representing all the plants, or on the mountains you're gonna have a lot of forests, all the plants on the mountains. The blue is representing the a little bit fog or foggy, type of, in the high mountains, gonna have something like that. And plus the plants. Some of the plants we're gonna use a little bit more blue side. If you look at this painting, right? For this pine tree here, is using quite a lot of blue color here. Now, the brown color basically representing the rocks or the earth, on the mountains, right? So these are what the color representing, right? So once you understand that, right, it's easier for us to apply, right? So normally on the mountains, right, middle or bottom section of the mountains, we're gonna apply the brown, a little bit yellowish also can, and then in the middle section, you're gonna apply more green. We call it sanlu. In the Chinese painting, the green is this number 55 in the M brand, or the other in the Maurice brand is actually this one, the 593. So these are the green we mentioned here, right? Well, the blue, right, is actually another color. It's actually 57 in the M brand, and in the Maurice brand, 451. So these are the colors we mentioned. Of course, the brown will take the number 14, or some with a little bit yellowish color. So these are the colors we're going to use, right? And now let's see the steps. So first, we need to finish all the ink layer, right? All the lines there. And then we need to go for the coloring. During the coloring, the timing and also the amount of color is very important, right? Because the timing, if you take the wrong timing during the coloring, what happens is the color, right, it might go together. That means, the earlier color layer, right? If you just finish and then color on top, right? And if you go very thick color, right? So the layers will become wrong, right? So let me show you the steps we do coloring. So first, right, we will always color the brown color, which is a base layer. So you can take the M brand 684, or the M brand is 14. So you can take some brown here. So I'm putting some brown. Right. While you coloring, one thing to make sure, right, is your brown color, the first layer of the color has to be very light. It has to be very light. You cannot go very strong first. For this type of painting, everybody should remember the most difficult part, right, is the lower side, which is the bottom of the mountain. How do we deal with this part? You see, if we go directly with a very dark brown, what happens is it will create a very clear edge here, right? Which is not what we wanted. We want some soft transitioning from the brown. So now we take some brown color, right? We mix with a bit more water, So when you have more water, right, your color gonna be lighter. See, now I scratch off all the additional water, right? Then I will come back, right? When you're coloring, also the direction is important. You color the brown, although we say it's bottom of the mountain, but you do not start at bottom of the mountain. You still start on the top of the mountain. So you see, I'm gonna start on top of the mountain. Here, very light brown. You can see very light brown. When I come down to the bottom, right, the first one, first layer of brown, what you're gonna do, right, is push the whole brush down. Push the whole brush down. Why I do that, right? If you push the whole brush down, now there's a lot of water you can't see. If you push the whole brush down, the brown color on top and the white color at the bottom, they're gonna have lines in the middle, which gives a soft transition from the brown to the white. So when you're mixing the color, right, you see I'm coloring from the top down. And when you're coming down on the first layer, right, you're gonna press down at the bottom of the mountain. So this one later, once dry, you will see the effect. Now, once we've done the brown color, you can wait for a while. Normally, we don't go direct with the second round of color, but you should know, right? When we do color, the color won't smudge. So let's say in case, because if we are painting on the cut, you will not see this water smudge, smudging surrounding. Let's say we are doing the cut. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the green color, the 593 or the 55, the M brand. So I'm going to wash my brush. I just wash my brush, and now I'm coming back out to this 55 color. You see, I'm actually taking more color there. Now, one thing you should do, right, also for this type of painting, you see, when I'm taking the color, I have colors in the front of my brush, but the back side is more empty or watery. So what we do here, right, see, I'm coming back to the mountains, and then I will come to the tip of the mountain, the top of the mountains. Then I'm going to press down, see, all the way. I'm actually pressing down. So what happened now, right? You might think, the color was smudged everywhere, right? But it actually didn't. So just remember, the only thing smudging is the water. And the ink, right, because it contains a lot of water, so that's why ink gonna smudge. In this case, right, the color will have a very minimal smudging because the water, some of the water will push them outside. Other than that, right, the color, if you do now when it's still white, is gonna transit to the brown more naturally. You see, it won't create a line there. If you are, when during the painting, you find out how come my color, green color, has a line there with the brown, that usually means either your color was too thick, you need more water, or another way is, the whole thing it become too dry, then no water to help to blend the color. So when we color the green, remember, color one by one. That means one tip of the mountain, you do one round. You do not do the whole thing together. This, when we do smaller painting, you might not see the difference. But if you do bigger painting, it's very clear because when you're coloring one tip of the top of the mountain, the bottom of the mountain, I say this layer, this part is actually, there's no green color, so it still shows more brown color inside. Right? So that's why we actually need to color one by one. So in between, right, you still have some difference to differentiate the color. Now, once it's done, cool. You can go for the third one, which is the blue. The timing here also is that if you are doing on a paper that's actually taking in the color faster, you can do you can wait shorter. That means you don't wait for longer time. if you are doing on a paper that's actually, you know, the water stay longer, right? You also can wait a bit more to do the different coloring. So I'm having more the blue color. So where this blue color we're gonna apply, this one is important. Although in this painting, right, you see on top of the mountain, he didn't apply the blue color, but at the bottom of the mountain, he's actually applying this blue color. So normally this blue color will go to two places. One is top of the mountain. One is bottom of the mountain between the shadows. That's where some of the foggy look will come from. Right. So it start also, see here, I'm starting the 57. I'm start to apply also one by one. So you do not go in all. So I have one for this mountain. Now I have another one behind. All right. Then I do one more to take a bit more color. Do one more here. You can see right now the color is still not smudging so much. Outside is still water. At this point of time, right, if you're painting on a rice paper, right, what you can do is you can use the high blower to dry the whole thing right now. Now,
你们
yes，
是57吗？
这个是57，对，57号。Okay. Now, this set, the 57, this blue color one, you can do multiple rounds. The first, the brown and green, you do one rounds is okay. If one rounds you can reach the color you wanted, you can do one round. But this blue, right, you might need to do a bit multiple rounds to increase the transition. That means, you know, on top of this mountain, I'm having a bit more. See, if I put a little more, the structure will be more clear. And also this one. I said two places, right? One is on top of the mountain. One is bottom of the mountain where the shading or the shadow goes, right? So another one of this blue, right, is actually coming from below. So where the shadow come from. So come from here, here. But when you do the below one, just remember, when you do the shadings of the blue on the below one, the color cannot be very strong. It can start lighter, maybe start a bit lighter, but you should not do very strong color bottom, right? Then later on top, see, you can have some more dark blue, just to enhance the top of the mountains a bit more. Okay. Even you can use more thicker color. So don't worry, you know, they won't smudging. So the whole thing smudging is actually water. All right. So this is just a very simple part of the mountains, right? So let me grab a hair blower, right? I will dry it right now so you can see. Okay, I use the strongest hair, the wind just now. So blow it dry. You see now, it's actually didn't smudge, right? You see the color not smudging. So once it's roughly dry now, we can start to apply the gold paints on top, and you can have a look and feel of the gold paint coating on top. How does it look? You can see the paints is very thick. The ink, the gold ink is very thick. You can take a small line brush and then we come back, right? To take the gold paint. And then we will come back, right, to coloring the lines. Where do we coloring the lines? Usually it's actually in the between the mountains, right? So you see I mentioned coloring this way. When you're coloring the lines on the mountains, one thing to take notes, the lines are no need to be continuous line. That means like I have one thing, everything happened to me. The whole outline. So what we should do, right, is more see I'm coloring this way. See this one, you can do a little bit of breaking lines, not the whole thing, but it's actually more like this. You see the color when you come down to darker one, you should, especially the ink, it's actually showing better contrast. This one on top. Like that. You do all these lines first, and then some part of the inside, some part of the inside the structure. The bigger one can also do lines there, but no need to do everything. So it must be a combination of the gold with the ink. So it should be a combination. Okay? So you see, once you add slowly, it's actually coming out. I'm not sure under the camera how it looks like. I can take a photo from a different angle and send to you. That's the shiny part. Let me send you on WhatsApp. If you can see, right, the angle when we look at down from top, and versus if you look at from the this way, this angle, right, it's from my point of view, right, it's more shiny. So that's the lighting. So this is like I mentioned, I think right now become regain the popularity. So more and more painters start to do this type of landscape. So I think it's not only that the gold color makes the painting very special, but it's more this color scheme that brown, gold, blue and green and blue, right? So that's actually making the whole thing very special. If you look at under the lighting, see different angles, right? You're gonna have different shining points. So this type of painting, especially if you do a large piece of painting with this, right, it's gonna look quite nice. Yeah. So today let's do a complete painting, right, of this landscape. And then we're also gonna put some gold paint, like this gold ink. One thing, just everybody to remember, your brush, once you use the gold ink, you must wash immediately after you use that. If you let them dry, you will be never to use your brush again. Some of the gold ink kind of like very because a lot of glue inside. Even you see, I put there right now. You see, it's already dry. For this part, already dry. Dry so fast. All right. So today, we can do. I mean, for the composition, we can do horizontal long paper, or we can do a fun shape paper. I say we haven't done a lot of fun shape paper recently for the landscape. So let's try a little. Actually, the horizontal and fun shape is the same. So for this one, the landscape, how do we arrange the whole composition of the mountains, right? We can use one, you see, if you want to create, let's just create, use marker, just use the brush. Let's say we're gonna have one mountain like this, so coming down a little more and going up there. So basically, this is partially a S shape. What do I mean by partially? That the last stroke here is indicating there are more mountains outside the frame. So this is, see the S shape there. So on top of that, right, you see we can split the mountains, into different layers, right, there. And behind, let's use another composition. Let's say behind we use a double S. Yes, you can do a double S, which actually will go up down here and go up down here, right? If we want to use the so-called the triangle composition, right, we can also use that means behind here. Let's say behind here, right? Then I have a far away mountains, right? Not taller than this, right? And then this one coming down. So now you see behind one is basically a triangle. In front one, this look like a triangle, but it's actually an S. So this is the classical, just now similar like Zhang one, that how we plan the painting, right? Of course, right, the final one, we can actually add something, there. Let's say you want to add, let's say besides this one, extension of the composition line, you want to have, let's say we paint some bird. Flying, right? Then the whole thing, the writing right here, right? The whole thing, the top here, right? So then that's actually a good composition. On top of the mountains, of course, let's say you don't want to have empty mountain, right? Then we can put a pine tree here, right? Can put a pine tree here, can put pine tree here. All these, right? They will not affect your whole composition, right? As long as you are building them on your composition line. You cannot say I have on top here, I build another tree very big. So we can go more like this way. Okay, it's back, right? Good. Also, we can do something like that, and to build, right? Let's say the mountains here, a little more structure. Then for the mountains, right, we can use what we did here. right? And then for the trees, put some pine trees. And behind the mountain, we use the same as what Zhang Daqian did, right? You see, behind mountain is using very blurry look at view, you know, that he didn't put any colors. So this applies to square, the rectangular also. You see, if you have a rectangular one, it's actually exactly the same, not much difference compared to one shape. Okay, any questions on the composition before we start?
Nope.
Good.
Everything is
Yeah. Good. So we just but if you want to design a little bit different, right? Some other composition also fine, but we, as long as we apply this particular style inside the paint, right? Okay, now let's start. Let me take a paper, right? As I mentioned, you have rectangular paper or fine shape paper, right? Both fine, right? Even you don't want, let's say you don't want to try the long one, you want a square one, also fine. So the main thing is the color scheme and good color effect.
Steven，我的
Lina，
pen 是 texture paper，OK 吗？
可以的，可以的，没问题。
对，是那个米色的中间。
可以啊，米色的也是挺好看的。对，
哦，那个金色啊，如果我有普通的金色的 paint 可以用吗？大概是一样的吧？
可以，应该都是一样的，只要是金墨就可以。
不是 ink 啦，是 paint 来的。
配也是可以的。
好好好。
对。
Good. Yes.
Yes.
Stephen.
Ready? Yes, Nelly.
Yeah, I have a question. Which kind of paper better, white or some golden paper to draw this?
You mean the white or the golden paper?
But the main cardboard, white or golden or with some structure?
Yes, actually, the golden or with some texture one is actually better. Yeah. So the white one is actually not very good. You know, if you have a little beige or brown color, right, it's actually better. Or some texture or this, the fiber one is actually will look even nicer because the thing is actually I do white because this one is a bit clear. But if you want to, all of you have texture one. Do you have texture one? If you have texture one, then I can also change to the texture one that we can have a look, right? What's the difference, right? Maybe I take a texture or a brown color, so that you know. Because if you look at Zhang Daqian's painting, this painting behind is actually colored everything a brown color.
Steven,
Yes,
is
Malone?
textured inside okay?
Which one? Sorry.
Textured inside.
Texture inside, yes, it's actually better. The texture inside is better. Only one thing to different is actually the white paper. Right? When you do the cloud, let's say you want to do some cloud, then you can leave the space. Other than that, right? Let's say you don't want to do cloud. If you have the texture paper, the cloud, you can also color it to be white. If you look at Zhang Daqian, this painting, right? The original, this part is actually coloring the white paints on top. You see the top of the mountain, also white paints on top. So some, you know, those time, I think when I show some in the classroom, some classmates say, how come this Zhang Daqian painting look a little bit like oil painting? It's if you know the history, right? He and Picasso are good friends. Say so during one period of his life, his painting style was actually pretty much affected by a lot of Western painting. Okay, let me okay.
Steven?
Let's just start the painting, right?
Steven, the last question. If
Yes.
I look on the original painting, I see that this, how to say, behind the mountains, it's like it's colored. It's specially done. It's not a paper. It's like a cloud or something like this behind.
Yes.
You can see this. Yes, behind.
Yes,
You can see
these are actually he
strokes
colored. Yes, he used
So
brown.
he did it specially.
He actually used the brown color, like big brush, to color the sky, the sky behind. Yeah, but the overall, you know, if you are using brown paper, even you don't color the behind, it will look nicer because all the tones are closer. If we do use white, you can see how actually this top of the mountain will become not so clear because this part also white, unless you color it into white. Yeah, this one he do is more, you know, snow on top of the mountains. All right, okay, so we can start. So same thing, right? We can start with the line brush. Now for the actual painting, right? Also the color of the lines of this style, right? Is more. You see, in the middle layer, which just now these mountains we're gonna do, you can do just the normal ink, right? And for the mountains behind, you can do a bit lighter ink. But if you prefer some like don't want the middle layer to be very dark, you can use lighter ink also. But anyway, a lot of main lines on the mountains, right, is gonna be covered by the gold color. Right, so we can start from here, right? The top of the mountain to be one side down, go out, right? So depending, right, if you want to do some cloud here, for this green and blue, the cloud is actually very special. If you look at the Zhang Daqian, the one cloud, he draw lines for the cloud, not the normal cloud we do. So we can start from here. Just by some imagination what to don't have to be see this one is coming down. See, when you're doing the lines on the mountains, also to try to break the stroke a little bit. Do not use a complete lines. Okay. So first, layer, right? We are going to trying to get the whole outline of the mountains. In the middle, let's say in the middle, we want to have one cloud here and one cloud here, right? Then you can skipping this part first. So that means I'm going to continue below. Until to the left hand side. And this side a bit more. So you have another layer coming down a little more, right? Then on this side, at the bottom, right? But here should have another cloud. It's okay. Have some cloud here. Then at the bottom, right? We're going up with another one. Coming down, down again. So basically, you can draw, the whole structure of the mountain first, right? Then we will come down to the detail using the lines to differentiate the different layers on the mountains. Let's say from here we want to split into another layer. All these layers, right? You can come to the outside, but that means this mountain become behind, or you can to the inside or to the front one. But if let's say this one here, right, you want a little more cloud, so remember to skip. To skip the area. Right, this one can come down a little bit. Do a little bit more. Cloud. Basically, we are drawing the structure for this part. As long as your lines are is having this type of crossing, it's okay. How your lines go, because later the shading we're gonna apply the lines to look at shading. Because if you do essentially a step by step. So this one. Coming down. So layer by layer, building the whole structure. Of course, inside we can have more structure, more layers, right? So once you have the rough structure of the mountains, right, now we can start to go a bit more detailed, right, adding all the lines, right, for the shading, right. Remember the shading, you can go from bottom, let's see here, go up. Everything was built by lines. here, right? And I have one more here. Usually this type of landscape, right, is most of the landscape, like what Chana Chen did, some of the landscape uh, based on real scenery, but most of them is actually you can do by imagination. So don't have to have a real. Actually, when you're painting more on imagination, right, it's actually the better you can understand because you try to organize the thing using the technique to create. So it's gonna give you better understanding of the structure. The cloud here, right? You can imagine a little bit from here to here, right? this one, the steps, right? It's like a drawing, right? You use pencil like drawing, so similar. Okay, right. So roughly the outline how we can do it till now, right? If you want to, let's say here, come down a little bit because your cloud go this way. So you can do a little now. Some of these lines, if you let's say plan for a cloud and you are not sure where to continue with the structure, you can actually also do the lines after. That means some of the lines you can do after you coloring. That's fine, but the only thing is the ones let's say some of the lines you do before you do the coloring, some of the lines you do after the coloring. What happens is the ones after you coloring, you did the lines after you coloring, they might be a bit darker than the ones you do before the coloring because the color will be on top. So on top of the mountains, right, we do the first one, the outline, right? And then come here, right, we can draw a pine tree there. Remember the pine tree? Inside the texture of the pine tree, you can just use lines also. For this type of higher mountains, the pine is more, we're focusing on just the poles of the pine tree instead of the whole structure. So we're gonna have on the left longer coming down, on the right hand shorter, and then on top we have another branches coming back like that. Or two. So we don't have to do too detailed. Of course, this pine tree, if you want to do a bit smaller, also can. So normally we can actually getting the whole the tree done first. See, having another one. This one could be behind the mountain. And this one I got right hand side a bit longer, and left hand side a bit shorter. To do something like that, right? And then basically the pine leaf, we can do like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh. The pine and the mountains, right? Once you fix the size, right? The pine tree is actually to give people a feeling of how big the mountain is. So if you want to do a huge mountain, of course, this pine tree, you need to do much smaller. But for the leaf here, right? We don't have to add so many, right? It's more just to show people, yes, this is a pine tree. So the standard way when we do the landscape, remember the 5 steps, right? So the outline, texture, dotting, right? Now the texture, right? We are using the lines to do it, so we can just skip that part, right? Then the dotting, we are using them, to representing all those small plants on the mountains, right? And we can do that too. And we will also do that before we actually applying the color. So you can use some dark ink, right? But the dots also, take notes. The dots we applying, right? Not randomly on the mountain, right? The dotting, it should always go to the lines, which means you see all these lines, outlines we have done. So you can do a little bit random dots along the lines that you already did. These are especially top of the mountain, you can do a little more. Small plants. The dot can be 2, 3, or single one also fine. So once you've done this line, so basically the ink layer we can finish right here. Of course, right, if you look at Zhang Daqian's painting, he's adding a lot of small trees, small trees on the mountains like that. You can do that, same, you can do on the mountains, but if you don't want to do, we can do the coloring directly. Right, so for the coloring, right, we can take a little bigger brush. The same thing, we're gonna apply the brown color first. So take more water. And now, right, let's say between the mountain, you're gonna have cloud here, right? So the same thing, right? When you're coloring, take notes. The soft parts should transit to the cloud. So for today's cloud, see, so coming down to the cloud, a bit soft. Then coloring over. When you're coloring over the ink, here's the thing. If you find out, because some of the cards or the rice paper are very different, if you find out like your ink is coming out because of the water, let's say your ink is coming out, normally because when you have a lot of water, right, it will be like that. If you find it is coming out, what you can do, right, is you can wash your brush a little bit so that your brush, you can wash off the ink. Otherwise, the ink will accumulate more on your brush, and then the whole thing, it will become very dark. So the whole same thing, the whole mountains, right? We are getting everything in brown color. So here we can go a little softer. Later we can do the cloud here. Now the brown color on top of the cloud and below the clouds, right? You need to do a different direction. I'll show you shortly. So I need to color over. You see my ink is coming out, right? So what I do is just wash my brush a little bit and then retake the brown color. The bottom here, right, you can also leave some space for cloud. I don't need everything to be brown. Now, when I mentioned the brown color on top and below the cloud is different. That means on top we are going this way, right? Then on bottom we are going this way. That means bottom of the brush pointing to up to have a soft transition there. So you can do this, right, and just come over to here so that I have a cloud go this way. And then under that, right, you can just color the rest, with the normal brown. So this one down, and maybe bottom here, right, we have another cloud. So just color this part. This part, some more cloud. Right. So the first layer is a very light brown. In between the different colors, let's say the first layer, you feel, oh, my brown may be too light. I want a bit darker one. Yes, of course, you can add darker one. You see, I can add one more layer of brown on top to make it a little darker. But the first layer lighter is very important because if you don't lay down the lighter one, when you go direct with the dark one, you will leave a lot watermark on the paper. So usually you start with the lighter one, right? Then gradually adding the darker on top so that the color look more smooth. So you color the whole thing with the brown first. Once this is done, then we can go for the 55 color. Just wash the brush and now taking the 55. See your painting, right? See your paper, right? If it's a little dry, it will be better. As we said, the color won't smudge, but under certain, let's say your under layer is very white, it might still smudge. Now, see if we can go one tip of the mountain, coming down. Sometimes when you see this very thick, what we do, we can use a tissue to take out the color. Now, what happens is the cut paper, this rice paper, one thing happens, right? If you paint while the brown is still white, sometimes you might see the fiber coming out, right? Because the rice paper is breaking, right? So in this case, right, if you see that's happening, right, you can also dry a little bit. You use high blower or you use weight. So we just dry a little.
Steven，这个55是不是笔比较干，还是用水
？55要有一点水。
哦，那不会就是 smudge 吗？在那个褐色上？
不会，颜色是不会 smudge， 只有水会 smudge。你看它其实是不会的。
哦，所以就是放点水在它上面吧。
不是放水，就是你这个要比较水一点。这个55要比较多水一点。
那它如果散没问题呀？
不会散的你看这个颜色不会散的，它散的出来的是水对。Yeah, so the 55 color color the top of the mountain, top of the mountain more paints, more color. You see, all these are try dabbing so that the bottom of your brush and the color transition more smooth. So under the mountain, under the cloud, can do the same. Coloring is 55 color, just under. So they have a consistent transition on top, bottom.
可以就是 dab 吗？不是画，我怕那个笔那个会有那个纸出来。
可以，你这样dab也可以，或者是你用那个吹风机把它吹一下也可以。
哦，我怕太用力，那个纸又出来。
对对对，轻一点，这个不可以太用力。对，因为它下面湿的嘛，所以。When the paper is white, do very gently, otherwise it will breaking. Right, so this is the second layer, right? Then on top, right, we have 57 for the third layer. The brush, right, when you finish second layer, right, on top, right, you don't need to wash. You can take the 57 directly out because you still have the blue, the green below. Then you're gonna have a better transition than just having the 57. So I have some 57 on the tip of my brush. Then I come back, right? See, coming back to the tip of the mountain, the color.
哦，这个有 smudge 哦。
没有，这个也没有 smart。你看它其实也没有。你看一下细。
有散啦，是对的吧？
散对一点点是 OK 的只要不是说散。
我需要用纸，就是把它弄干些吗？
不需要，下面那个绿是吗？
散吧，因为我们刚刚画嘛，是有点湿。
对，你可以等它一下子，等它一下子。现在主要问题是你现在画像我这个，它有可能会那个纸会破掉那个纸会破掉。不过你轻轻的好像 very gently tapping 其实是可以的。
OK， 我现在就是轻轻，可是看那个音有散了，是 OK 吗？水就是散，
水散开不要紧颜色不会散开。你的颜色有散开吗？
哦，我拍照给你看吧。哎呦，好发了。哦，对不起啊，还没有发。
对对，这个如果是这样的话你可以就是稍微等它一下子因为这个散是因为那个下面的那个里面的东西它会散一点但是你这样的话，你就稍微等它一下，或者是用那个吹风机吹一下，给它吹干一点。
不可以用 paper 吗
？paper 你沾了之后，你颜色就没了你用 paper 的话，那个颜色就会掉了你会发现这个下面的就会很浅了，就不好看吹风机比较好吹风机比较好，对。
所以我现在要等一下。
你要不然就是等，要不就是用吹风机吹一下都可以。或者是你涂颜色的时候这个可能比较厚一点那个57号比较厚一点也是 OK。 the blue at the bottom, right? We can go a bit lighter. Just go one round lighter. Right. So now we have get. You might see some smudging, right, like this. The water push the color upside a little bit. Actually, for this type of painting, it's actually totally fine. There's no problem with that. Right. So now we have done the whole mountains in the colors. So now what we do, right, we can apply the gold on top. If you want to wait dry a little bit to apply on top, also fine. But the gold color actually wants smudging out. So maybe let me just dry a little bit just mute so that not so noisy.反正你画的挺好的，可以的啊。
其实这个只是我4年前开始，就是从淘宝上买，可是我那时候可能不会画，一直散这个纸。
哦，对，它其实就是散是正常的。那个时候可能也是刚开始吧。
我觉得你的纸就是不会这么容易散。
它对，就是说要用不同的，比如说生熟了那现在这个淘宝的纸也是有好有坏，是很难讲。你要试了，试了才知道。所以我们现在画线So yeah, we will outline go. Remember when you're outlining the gold paint, do not do a continuous line. Try to break the line a little bit. So first one, you outlining the major lines of the structure of the mountain. Then you can go for the small detail one. So we're getting this one. some parts of the mountains, right? Let's say the lighting lighting on the side of the mountain, right? You can do a little more gold. So I'm actually doing more on the right hand side, a little more gold. Some of those dots, the black ink dots, right, on top, you can also dot some gold. It's actually more matching the lines that we already done.
Steven，如果没有那个金色，就是画到这边是吗？
对，如果没有金色，就是画到那边就可以了。哦，嗯。Okay. So last one, we're gonna add the background mountain. So the background mountain, what do we do? On the background mountain, we are using a lighter ink to do. So how do we do it? So I'm taking the big brush, then I'm take take a little lighter ink on the tip of the brush. For this part, if you don't want the ink, you can use a bit brown also can. So as we initially planned, right, we want a mountain behind far away, just the shadow of the mountain, and then more like a triangle there coming down. So we can do. But take notes of the cloud here. So we have another mountain definitely lower than this one. I can use tip, brush tip up, coming down slowly up. And slowly to the right hand. In the center, you can stretch a little more. So lighter on top. Then this cloud will connect with the front one. And on the bottom, right, we want a triangle combined with the S shape, right? So on this side, it should be like that. Just slowly coming to. So you finish that. So very important for the background, the mountain. Try not to, repeat the stroke. It will actually become darker and darker. So what we wanted is all very light look and feel. For the cloud here, what Zhang Nanqian did, right, is gonna do a lot of lines for the cloud, draw a lot of lines for the cloud. I think we don't need to do that. We can leave it just white like this, or if you want to do some shading, try to refer back. Last time we do all this shadings of the cloud. Personally, I think the leave white would be better. So keep the whole thing, whole painting more clean. Side stretch a little more. Okay. Right. Until there, right, we should be done for this painting, right? Of course, right, like Zhang Nanqian is covering the whole background in brown color. Like the cloud, the sky behind. That's more, for a sunset, not a sunrise, a sunset scenery. So if we don't change anything, yeah, that should be all for this painting, right? Of course, if you want to add some bird, add here, right? Definitely the proportion should be correct. For the trees on top, right? This part you want to color a little bit, let's say the brown, the blue also can. Depending on own preference. Main body of the mountain has to be in this color. And also take notes, right? When you're painting on the cards, the moments you are painting versus once the whole painting is dry, it will be a little bit different. A little bit different on the painting. And some of these styles, right, more like advanced parts, right, is sometimes we will use the other lighter, very light blue that we have is 17. So sometimes we might use this color, the very light blue, on top of the mountains to give some highlights. You can also try that. It's not a must, but this one to use this lighter blue is more tricky than which part you should add. Because in the Qianli Jiangshan, very big painting in Song Dynasty, they are using a lot of light. Yeah. Right. So for the title of the painting, right, I also write you can write surrounding the fan shape, or you want to write vertical, this way also can. the title of this painting, right? We go most simple one. It's a direct. So it's actually like this. We write Qing for the Li style. Come on, a little bit. Shan. Lu. Shui. This means blue mountain, green water. But essentially, if you switch the character, Qing Lu Shan Xu is actually the style name that we painted. So it means blue and what, blue and green landscape. This is for the standard writing, the cursive writing for this way. We'll go this way. Turn. Qing Shan Lu Shui. So you can write either which one you like. I believe everybody is working on it right now. Yeah, take your time. You know, this,
Steven，应在写在哪里呢？
写在这上面啊，你可以写等一下啊，你可以写这边，也可以写这边，都可以的。这边竖着写，或者是这样写都可以。
OK 好，我看那个字可以发给我吗？
好，我发给你这个。
我写那个简单的可以吗？因为怕
可以的。其实这个painting 这个比较好看。
写在那。
我看一下啊。对，写在那里就可以。
好。可以，你可以写一下吗？我不知道有多大。
等一下啊，差不多写，看，差不多写这么大就可以了。就是我写的这个 size，刚好放在上面就是这样。可以比它再小一点的，再小一点。
OK。
Okay, so this part, right, is so far what we have done, right? Of course, right, on top you can have more, like just now I said 55, right? So what I'm gonna do, right, because I have to go for one appointment shortly. So when I come back, right, what I'm gonna do, right, is I'm going to, just now I mentioned this 55, right, like I mentioned, is optional, right? I'm going to take that color and color on some corresponding places, right? And then I will show you a final complete one. And yeah, you can but so far until now, it's actually already a finished one. It's only, you know, some further enhancement to the painting, right? Good. So I have to, you know, end the class right now, right? Then I will send you everything now. Sorry, my camera on the laptop not working.
No, it's
Okay.
Stephen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So,
Bye.
bye-bye, Nadi
Bye-bye.
and
See you
Alona.
soon. Ciao.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Yeah,
Bye.
once you painted, just send in the chat. Right? Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.